Hi, my name is Odom, and I'm currently in the University of New England's Applied Nutrition 605 course, and I'm here today to present my key assessment report to you guys. Okay, so to start off, we were given the case study for a girl named Jane. She's 14, she weighs 153 pounds, and she is 5'2", so she's 62 inches tall. To start off, I went on the CDC's website and found a calculation for BMI. I used the empirical one, so it was all in inches and pounds. So the calculation for that was to take her weight of 153 pounds, divided by her stature of 62 inches, divided by her stature of 62 inches again, and then multiply it times 703. And this gave me her BMI of 28, which the CDC does categorize as obese. Some of the short-term health risks for obesity are sleep apnea, intracranial pressure, and gallstones. That can be like an immediate risk as well as short-term. So that's something that as an adolescent reaches the categorization of obese, they can start to see some of those issues. Some long-term things are increased blood pressure and serum cholesterol, as well as an increased sodium sensitivity. And then we also see some increased lasting glucose levels, indicating prediabetes and diabetes. If this continues into adulthood, we can see some increased risks of cancer, arthritis, heart disease, and then tons of other stuff, be it pulmonary, gastric, and many other different systems. So, with her being an adolescent, being 14 years old, a lot of her treatment is going to have to go down to the parents as well. So with parents, not only is there an environmental factor of, they're the ones feeding the child and giving the child money for food and teaching them what they should eat and modeling for them what they should eat, but also there's a genetic factor. So they're, passing down predispositions for obesity as well as for diabetes and other things like that. So it's coming from both sides, from nature and nurture. So here you can see on the left is Jane's stature for age and weight for age percentile levels. So obviously her stature for age level was between 25 and 50 percentile range, so that's not too bad. That's a normal range, nothing to be worried about. But then in her weight to age, she was between the 90 and 95th percentiles, which is not a great number, and it does indicate obesity. And then the biggest indicator was her BMI for age growth chart. You can see that she's above 99 percentile, or the 99th percentile, which does indicate obesity and is definitely calls for concern and treatment. So some of the treatment stages that are options for Jane are the Prevention Plus, which is the stage 1 of the adolescent obesity treatment stages. In this, you're going to see us trying to get her to eat 5 servings of fruits and vegetables per day. You're going to be seeing if she can get less soda, more water. We'd be asking her to get an hour of activity per day, be it playing outside or a sport or just something physical where she's getting some exercise. We would be asking her to get less than 2 hours of screen time per day, so that's computer, phone, anything like that where she's being sedentary and just sitting and not being active. It would include the whole family, so we'd be asking them to get less fast food, and for her to eat breakfast. Moving on to structural weight management, the second stage, it's all the same things, but it's a little bit more intense, so it would be less than an hour of screen time per day instead of less than 2 hours. We start seeing maybe some non-food rewards for her meeting goals. So if she, meets her goals for activity, we can, give her some money for clothes or do something to encourage her to keep making those goals. We would probably implement a meal plan, try to minimize her energy-rich foods, and implement more nutrient-rich foods. In stage 3, which is comprehensive multidisciplinary intervention, it's also more intense in stage 2, but it does go back to the same basis of stage 1 and stage 2. So you're going to see the same stuff with the fruits and vegetables, less screen time, things like this, more activity, but it's going to be implemented by a larger team of healthcare professionals. So you're going to have a psychologist, dietitian, things like that. it's going to be more about behavior modification. So there's going to be a little bit more on what she's doing, what she can't do, things like that. And then she's going to have a very detailed eating and activity plan. So it's going to be a lot more strict, intense, and we're going to be working really hard to get her weight down. In the tertiary care intervention, which is stage 4, that's really saved for those that go through the other 3 stages and don't see any improvement or don't see enough improvement. That includes meal replacements, medication, even bariatric surgery or low-energy diets. A lot of times that's going to take place in a care facility, so it's not quite something that's going to be just in the home. Alright, you can see here are Jane's average intakes over her 3-day meal report and then the actual requirements. She was definitely in excess for calories, but then she also had some deficiencies going on, so we're going to talk about that. So, Jane had an excess of calories. She was consuming 2,890 calories versus her requirement of 2,368 calories. This can definitely lead to weight gain, and it definitely calls for concern since she is already obese. She was consuming far too much niacin, which the upper intake limit for that is 30 milligrams, and she was consuming an average of 34. In some research, I found that there are many medications that use far more doses of that for different treatments for like cholesterol and things like that. So as long as she's consuming less than 3 grams, it shouldn't be a big problem, but it definitely needs to be looked at and monitored. If it does get too high, it can lead to hepatotoxicity. But another nutrient that was really of worry was her sodium intake. She was far, far above the upper intake limit of 2,300 milligrams per day. She was at 4,809 milligrams per day. This can lead to dizziness, fainting, fatigue, convulsions, low blood pressure, and lack of urination or low urination volume. If it continues, it can lead to even more, and even death. It can be fatal. But it did say that it is more likely to have a high sodium intake than it is to have to become toxic. So a lot of times that is actually just caused from an increased loss of water. So like activities and stuff in the heat and things like that. It's not usually from high sodium intake, but it can be a problem. And if continued, it can lead to hypertension later in life, especially if it's continued into adulthood, since she is only 14. She was in excess for a lot of other nutrients, but none of them were above her upper intake levels, and it was most likely just due to her high volume of food intake, so just the high calorie and high dense food, energy dense food. She was deficient in a lot more things, that she was in excess, so she was deficient for water and fiber. These are really worrisome when it comes to dehydration with the water situation, which is very dangerous, especially if it's summer and she's outside being active or something like that. She was drinking a lot of soda and a lot of sweet tea, so her water intake was just not where it needs to be for her to be being healthy and stuff, but that can lead to fatigue, dizziness, confusion, stuff like that, just the dehydration itself. So it's definitely something that needs to be kept up with. Her fiber was low, which can definitely lead to constipation, and with fiber being soluble or insoluble, you're going to get a lot of health benefits with cholesterol, bringing down your bad cholesterol and bringing up good cholesterol. So she'd be missing out on a lot of that by not getting enough fiber. Her vitamins, she was deficient in choline, vitamin D, and vitamin E. With choline in deficiencies, we see some issues with lymphocytes, the kidneys, the liver, and some studies have even seen spontaneous carcinomas, cancers, from low choline intake. She can fix this by getting more animal products like lean meats, low-fat dairy, eggs, things like that, in moderation, to kind of bring that up. Her vitamin D issue can definitely be solved by her being outside and just being more active. She's very sedentary. She's inside a lot. She hasn't been drinking much low-fat dairy. So if we're increasing that and we're getting her outside for about 15 minutes twice a week, that should bring her up to a good level. For vitamin E, she's actually consuming half of what she should be getting. So that can be a big issue, and it can lead to spinal cord abnormalities and muscle paralysis, and then gait imbalance issues. So that's definitely something that will also need to be watched. 3 minerals. She was deficient in magnesium, phosphorus, and potassium. With magnesium deficiencies, we can see fatigue, dizziness, nausea, loss of appetite, weakness, but then long term it can turn into seizures, cramps, tingling, and even heart problems. If we can increase her intake of fruit, vegetables, and low-fat dairy, that should fix her problem. And then with phosphorus, it's kind of a similar thing with her needing to increase her intake of low-fat dairy and then lean meats. And then with potassium, that can lead to muscle cramps, weakness, fatigue, and even intestinal paralysis with deficiencies in that. And a lot of foods like fruits and vegetables and things like that, especially bananas, can be high in potassium. So as long as she's getting healthier, better foods, then it should solve that issue for her. And you can see here in her lab results that her sodium, potassium, cholesterol, and triglycerides were all normal, which is surprising because her HDL was too low and her LDLs were too high. This can actually lead to a reading of low total cholesterol. So that may be why we see a cholesterol of 160 milligrams instead of being above 170. Her fasting glucose was high, which could indicate prediabetes, so that definitely needs to be watched and monitored and taken care of so she doesn't become diabetic in the future. Okay, so for treating drain, I recommend using the stage 2 structured weight management, which will just be less than 1 hour screen time, an hour of activity all day, be it a game or sports or going for a walk or a run, whatever. And then just the 5 servings of fruit and vegetables every day and a meal plan. So the 3-day meal plan that I made at the end of this presentation, I think should help with all of her deficiencies and things like that and helping her reduce her weight. And also I liked in the structured weight management that it should be administered by a trained health professional because since she is so young and is obese, that could really lead to some health problems in the future. So it's important that there's a health professional involved. So some local and state and national programs for Jane that could work. The first is TOPS, which is Take Off Pounds Sensibly. An issue with this one is that there weren't any things on their website saying if adolescents could join, but there wasn't anything saying that they couldn't. It's in person, so she would just like call up and sign up for something. It's low cost, nonprofit. It's something her whole family could do, and they just get together and go over their goals and how it's going and just support each other. The other is Lighten Up Charleston, which is a little more statewide. Part of it is online. It's more an initiative than a program, but they just have been trying to get local people and residents and things to come to events in Charleston, as well as implement healthy lifestyle at home with their families. I like that a lot of it was family oriented, so since we know that both of her parents are struggling with their weight, that would be very useful for them to all get to go and do things, but there are some issues with it being partially online. Another national program is the National Institute of Diabetes and Digestive and Kidney Diseases. All of their resources are online, but it's very specific to different age ranges, diseases for individuals, it's specific to demographics, all kinds of things. So she could definitely find things that would help her, but it's all online, so they would have to have access to a computer, a smartphone, or a public computer in a library or something like that. So I definitely recommend the TOPS just because it is a support group and they can meet in person to really help her feel supported and encouraged and meet the goals she needs to meet. So you can see here that I have her first day's meal plan. Each day I tried to implement a breakfast, a lunch, a snack, dinner, and then another snack. So it's very similar to the one that she turned in. So I felt that would be more within her comfort zone and easier for her to implement just because it is similar to what she's already been doing. So for a lot of her snacks and meals, I tried to use a lot more vegetables, fruits, low-fat milk products and the dairy products, high-fiber things, more lean meats, so stuff that will actually help her body but also be tasty and good, and things like that. Well, I hope you enjoyed my presentation. I tried to be thorough as well as I could. I hope that it was clear for you, and I hope you enjoyed it. Have a good one. Bye.